Hello, I'm Robert Buchanan. This is Dan Maschio, John Beard, and Aaron Crow. And today we're going to talk about The Power of Thinking Without Thinking by Malcolm Gladwell. Specifically, we're going to talk about thin slicing, snap decisions and thinking, 3 levels of organizational behavior that can be used in an application of this book, and dissenting opinions. Now, some definitions you should pay attention to during this presentation are intuition, which is our gut feeling about something. Thin slicing, our brain's ability to make patterns off of information, of very little information. And snap decisions, which is when we make a decision in the blink of an eye. Now, to discuss thin slicing is Dan Maschio.
So as Rob said, thin slicing is your ability to make a decision with little info. Now, in Blink, they talk about a good example, and that is through John Gottman, who's a psychologist. And basically what he does is he analyzes film of a married couple. And just by watching 15 minutes of that film, he can predict with 90% accuracy whether they'll last or they'll get divorced. Now, thin slicing doesn't come just by being born. It's not a prodigious talent that you just gain through birth. It's something that's learned. You can't go into something like what John Gottman does, watch film of a married couple and just know. He's watched thousands and thousands of hours of video, and through this experience, he's kind of gained that ability to thin slice. There are certain things out there that you can rely on your intuition to thin slice, but for the most part, you have to have a good expertise in the subject. So one of the things that we learned through John Gottman was that because of those hours and hours he was able to do that, he also was able to do it in a short period of time. And the great thing about thin slicing is, while technically is making a snap decision, all he's doing is taking a small amount of that information that he's gained through experience and kind of applying it in a quick manner. So next to talk about the power of thinking without thinking is John.
Thank you, Dan. So I'm going to be applying the book concepts on an individual, organizational, and group level. So with an individual level, let's say that Aaron is interviewing me over here for an accounting internship. If I walk in looking like this, Aaron is going to instantly make a snap judgment that I am unqualified for the position. If you look at me, my hair's a mess, I'm not clean shaven, and I'm in khakis with a not ironed shirt. That is not ideal when you're going into an interview. But if I walk in a suit, clean shaven, nice haircut, and I have a firm handshake, Aaron's going to make that snap decision and say, wow, this guy's a really good client or clientele, I would love to hire him, etc. So that's how it applies on an individual level. For an organizational level, branding is huge. So just for example, we have Coke on our poster board. Coke is one of the biggest and well-known brands in the world. So if you look at their website, it's really easy to navigate, and you have just many different images and brand messaging that's really easy to recognize. If you look at their website, boom, you make that decision that, wow, Coke's a really great product. But what's funny is people can't even recognize sometimes the difference between Coke and Pepsi. So just that branding, just like Nike does, as we have down here, you instantly see Nike and you're like, wow, that's a great product. It could be the same as, just for example, Everlast. They could have the same exact material, everything, but you see the Nike swoosh and you're like, wow, that is just great. So that's how it can apply to an organizational level, just knowing that people make those snap decisions and that they can influence purchasing decisions. And then finally, at group level, let's say that I walk into an interview, or we'll just go with a meeting. I walk in and everybody's just screaming at each other and it's just a really nasty environment. Instantly in my head I'm thinking, wow, I really don't want to share my opinion. I'm cut off in this environment. But for example, if I walked in and everybody's listening and being really nice and giving really constructive feedback, I'd be more willing to share, and that can apply at a group level. That way everyone is contributing and everybody's participating. So next I'm going to talk about combining snap decisions and thinking. So the main point that our group feels that Malcolm Gladwell states is that he's trying to get people to realize that they make these decisions and not solely base everything they do around the snap judgment. Just for example, the book talks about an ex-Army veteran named Paul Van Ripper. So Paul has just years of military experience, battle strategy, and has led multiple platoons into war. So being retired, they put Paul against a computer system that was just had everything programmed and knew every single kind of battle strategy that's ever been used. And what happened is while they were doing a war simulation, Paul came up with, just based on his prior military experience and knowledge and just his gut feeling of the formation they were going to use, Paul came up with a solution that ended up having his side beat the computer system, just because the computer system didn't foresee him knowing what kind of battle formation they were going to use. So sometimes that intuition feeling, you could be right, but the expertise also plays a role, and it kind of assists you as you're going on with it. So that's just one example. So we just like to know that expertise, as well as knowing that you make these snap decisions and combining those together, is kind of unlocking that door to your unconscious, and you make better decisions based on that. So now I'm going to pass off to Aaron, who's going to talk about dissenting opinions and Coke.
Thanks, John. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the presentation and talk to you a little bit about what Malcolm Gladwell, two studies that he did, or actually two studies that I looked at. And the one study was the Coke and Pepsi challenge, and then the other study is a study about, he went out to dinner with two ladies who are experts in their field. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what he found by going out to dinner with those two ladies. So the Pepsi challenge was actually in the 80s, and they decided that, you know, Coke had way too much of the market, and they wanted to see if they could challenge and take a little bit of the market share away from Coke. And so they set the drinks down, and they brought in a bunch of people to come and test it, and they found out that people actually, you know, by a landslide preferred Pepsi over Coke. So Coke went back to the drawing board and was like, hey, you know, we're going to decide to change the recipe up a little bit and see if we can beat Pepsi. So they found out that through the studies that Pepsi won because they're a little bit sweeter than Coke. So Coke came out with something called New Coke. And they put it out, and I thought it was going to be a huge success, but it was actually one of the biggest marketing failures of all time. And people clamored to get the old Coke recipe back, and so Coke said, okay, well, we'll give you the old Coke recipe, but you know, what did we learn here? And that's what they wanted to know, like what they learned from this. And they actually found out that people like Pepsi during the taste test better just because they were able to take one sip and it was a lot sweeter than Coke, so instantly they liked it better just because it was better on their palate. And so then they found out that actually when they took Coke home and, you know, they like got to experience it and, you know, kind of analyze it a little bit more, then their snap intuition decision actually changed. They usually their analysis better. But Malcolm Gladwell also looked at a study called it's like the triangle. They call it the triangle test, and a lot of people can know if they're like, let's say they're Coke or Pepsi experts. A lot of people say they're like one cola or the other, and they'll put the two together, and they can usually tell, like if they drink one, they drink the other, they can tell which one is which. But if you actually put a triangle together, let's say you test Coke, then Pepsi again, it's like 33% accuracy that you're going to get one right. So really, you might as well just take a guess. So they found out that only true experts would know the difference between that. And that takes me to my second point in our dissenting opinions, which I'll get there, is Malcolm Gladwell went out to dinner with two food critics who had spent thousands of hours, just like John Gottman did when he was thin slicing the videos. They spent thousands of hours thin slicing food. And, you know, instead of someone, let's say they had a burger and they say, wow, this is a really good burger. These women have 1,000 different categories, literally 1,000, it says in the book, to describe this burger. And let's say maybe it's savory, salty, and they just go into a whole bunch of depth, and you can tell that they're really experts. And he said Gladwell said that the experience of eating with these ladies was just completely overwhelming because of how much information they knew about this food. And he put them up to the Pepsi challenge, the triangle challenge, where you have the Pepsi and Coke, then you drink Pepsi or Coke again. And they got it right every time. And they could break down the flavors into different categories based on their thousands of hours of experience. So that makes them experts in the field, and they are making like a snap decision about what their intuition is, but they're understanding, like what Beard said, the locked door, which is like the unconscious that Gladwell talks about, and they're unlocking that locked door that we usually can't see behind, and they're able to conclude with certainty that yes, this is Pepsi and this is Coke. And so what we said in the book, Gladwell really is heavy on the intuition, and he does give a couple examples like the Van Riper about how the experts, how that affects, but we really feel like he should have delved into more in depth about how the experts can affect your intuition, how really it's not really intuition like he suggested. It actually comes from years of analysis and thousands of hours of analysis. And we decided that there's some decisions, such as maybe what time to go to the grocery store, that you can rely on just pure intuition, and you don't really need to sit down and analyze. But there's other big decisions like buying a house, and that's something that you really need to sit down and analyze, and decide. Maybe sit down with people that you're buying the house with, and decide, is this really good for us, and really delve into that. So this is our review of the book Blink, and we hope you enjoyed it, and thanks a lot for your attention and listening.